History, Chapter Rulers and Buildings. In this chapter, we are going to learn about the constructions and buildings during the medieval period. So, in the medieval period, private and public buildings were constructed like forts, palace, mosque, tombs, temples, tanks, and etc. These constructions happened during the medieval period, and the building skills and constructions that were followed during this period, they followed a very new technology. They added more rooms and doors and windows to the buildings. It was done in Trapeze style construction with an arcuate architecture using limestone. So they used limestones to build arcuate architecture because the limestones were faster way to complete the constructions. The limestones with the help of small stones were used in the constructions to make it faster. So here in this picture you can see the construction of a fort, the mosque, temple, tombs. So in most of these drawings you can see the arch-shaped structure. This is the arch-shaped structure which is called an arcuate. So this arcuate is constructed with a trapeze form. Just as you had seen, the trapeze style construction is nothing but two vertical pillars with one horizontal pillar. So this shape with two vertical pillars and one horizontal pillar is called a trapeze, and the arch form is with two pillars with the same horizontal pillar but in a shape of an arch with bricks closely laid. There was another pattern in their construction. It is called the Pietra dura. The Pietra dura construction was nothing but making patterns by carving small pieces from marbles. So a small duct, a small depression is made in the marble and precious stones are laid inside these depressions, forming a pattern. So this makes a pattern. This is called a Pietra dura. So Pietra dura is nothing but carving or making some depressions on marbles and placing small stones, creating a beautiful pattern. So this is an example that I have given with a marble, and they cut the marble into small curve and stones are placed inside the curves. So these curves and making a design. So this is called a Pietra dura construction. Now we are going to see about buildings, temples, mosques and tanks. So first we'll start with the construction of temple. So the main reason these temples were constructed in a very beautiful pattern because it was the place of worship. And the more beautiful and the more large a temple is, it is to show their power, wealth and their devotion. So every king spends their money in constructing a large temple in order to show their power and wealth. So the largest temples are actually constructed by the kings, and smaller temples are constructed by the subordinates of the kings. In this we can see an example of the Rajeshwara temple. So according to the instructions, this Rajeshwara temple was built by King Rajarajadeva for his god Rajeshwaram. So the Rajeshwara temple was built by King Rajarajadeva for his god Rajarajeshwaram. You can see that the names are similar, Rajarajadeva and Rajarajeshwaram. The god and the king's name were often similar because the kings considered keeping the same similar name is very auspicious and is a very good luck for them. And also they make sure their names are similar to their gods so that they appear and look like God. They have the inheritance, and they also resemble God. Now, on the other hand, we would see about mosques. So, the Muslim sultans actually did not claim to be incarnation of God. Incarnation is the rebirth or taking the form of God. But the Persian court chronicles described these Muslim sultans as shadows of God. And the Muslim sultan, that is Sultan Ittumushi, built the largest reservoir. Reservoir is a tank kind construction to store water, and he called it the King's Reservoir, or it was also called Hanzi Sultani. So these sultans actually built these tanks so that their name is more acclaimed, because building a tank and saving water actually brings a good name for them among the people. So, coming back to constructions, between the 8th and the 18th centuries, kings built two kinds of structures. So, the two kinds of structures were actually segregated as the first that came into the line was forts, tombs, and palace. So, these were the first kind of structures. The second were for people, that is for their public activities like temples, tanks, mosques, and bazaars. Bazaars are shopping areas. So the second kind of construction was basically for the public activity. Okay. And the architecture became more complex under the Mughals. So we can see that during the Mughal period, new patterns of architectures emerged. Babur, Akbar, Jahangir, and Shah Jahan were interested in literature and art. And Babur was the first person who constructed the Char Bagh. The Char Bagh is also called as Four Garden. So here you can see the pattern of the Chahar Bagh. So this is the water line that goes, and this is the garden. This area is the garden area. So it literally looks like four divisions. So these four divisions are this Chahar Bagh pattern. So the first Chahar Bagh was built by Babur. The gardens had a symmetrical division. Shah Jahan had copied this Chahar Bagh technique in the construction of the Taj Mahal. If you see the Taj Mahal in the front, it has the pattern of the Chahar Bagh. The garden is laid in this pattern. So you can see how the difference in architecture came up during the Mughal period. Now, let's come to the topic of the temples. Most of the time during war, the temples were always destroyed. Why? As I have already discussed, the temples were built to show the power and wealth and devotion of a kingdom. So, the larger the temple, the powerful and the wealthier the king. So, in order, the temple became the main target for the opposite kings. So, if a king had to attack a kingdom or target, they will first target the temple, because the temple is a symbol of power and wealth of the king. So, the kings first destroy the temples. I hope you have understood as to why the temples were destroyed. I will just read this again to you. The temples were built to show the power and wealth and devotion of the king. Every king builds a very large temple in order to show how powerful and rich and wealthy he is. So, this being a large construction becomes a main target. The other kingdoms actually target on the larger place. So if a temple is destroyed, it means the power and wealth of a particular king is destroyed. So I hope you people have understood about the different buildings, constructions and techniques used during this period.